Welcome back. So the city of Tshwane has issued a court notice to the whites-only Afrikaner settlement of Clen Fontaine outside Pretoria. The metro is compelling residents to file a new spatial planning and land use management application. This is to supplement an outdated one that was filed in 2013. But the settlement's leaders argue that a new application will be too expensive. Well, we are joined for more on this by the Tshwane Housing and Human Settlement MMC, Maluleka, who joins us via video link. Thank you so much for joining us, MMC. We do appreciate your time. I'm keen to find out for you what this order really would mean. If you were to explain it in simple terms, what it would actually mean for the settlement and what it is that they need to do and why.
We have promulgated the land use management scheme, the new one in 2016 bylaw. And in this court, one of the issues is adherence, and the Clen Fontaine leadership is aware that for many years they were not compliant in terms of the 652 dwellings that they have constructed in their private owned settlement. And going to court, it's also a follow-up on a court outcome that found against one of the groups that were fighting from Clen Fontaine around illegal activities that are taking place. And they are aware that we are enforcing our bylaws that they should have, for many years, have followed, applied for the land, followed the process of proclamation of the township, so that at the end of the day, they've got a township that is established through a council process. And there's nothing racial about our actions. But there was a court order against us that we were almost complicit, not acting against the group that started that development. Therefore, we are now actively participating in the court to force the group that is a leadership of Clen Fontaine to do the right thing.
And so the right thing would mean that they would need to then file a new application, but what you've heard from the spokesperson of the community is that they simply can't afford a new application. What are the costs associated with that application? And what happens if the community simply says, we can't afford it? What's on the other side of that?
What they're not telling you, Naledi, and the community and the citizens of Tshwane is that they've been collecting monies for the 650 dwellings that are in Clen Fontaine. And that on its own is illegal activity that they were carrying, that today they can decry poverty. If there's any other issue, they should have knocked at our doors, engaged the council leadership, so that we engage on a file that we have that is coming from them. We don't want to speculate what is contained in their proposal. We don't want to speculate what they can afford, because for all these years that they've developed the township, they've collected rates and taxes, and they've done that and placed those collections in their trust accounts. Therefore, they should be treated like any other community that want to develop. Our applications are public. There's no extra fund, extra charge that is going to be imposed on the Clen Fontaine community. Therefore, if they've got any other issue, they must then come to council so that we can be able to engage them.
You say you believe that they've been collecting rates and taxes and then putting some of those funds in a trust account, but have they been paying to local government for rates and taxes?
They haven't. Remember, the land is zoned agriculture. When the land is zoned agriculture, then they are paying less than what the township is supposed to pay. Individual houses, they are supposed to pay. That's why there was an issue around the valuation roll, that suddenly we have increased the valuation roll. But they've developed their dwellings into households, independent households that are now charged privately by Clen Fontaine leadership. Therefore, what we're going to do, we're going to make sure that they work with us if they are willing. If they are not, we'll ventilate all the issues in our prayers in the court process that is going to ensue very soon.
Again, we go back to what happens if this community simply says they can't afford a new application. What are the consequences of that? Is it correct that you have threatened demolitions?
We haven't arrived at that point. Remember, we are doing the other work parallel to Clen Fontaine, which we also included in the 17 illegal townships. that we're going to engage in making sure that we have township establishment. But it depends on how the community leadership treats us as a local authority. We are willing to engage. We are willing to work with any community. But we know, and this is coming from some of the members of the community, and they came forward just to engage us that what is happening in Clen Fontaine is very unfortunate. We know that this, people have collected rates and taxes, reinvested it in other activities, and we're going to follow up on that. That's why in the past months, we had a credit waiver on people that couldn't afford. We engaged individuals, and we gave them rebates and bailouts on their debts. But that cannot be a blanket approach, because we also have an obligation to pay our, our obligations. We must pay ESCOM, we must pay rent water on the utility services that were provided on month-to-month basis.
Yeah.
Therefore, we must pass those costs to people that are consuming those services at an affordable price.
Yeah, I'll tell you why I raised. Yeah, I'll tell you why I raised. I'm just stepping in the interest of time here, MMC. I'll tell you why I raised the issue of whether or not on the other side of it, if you're not able to come to an agreement and a new application with the spatial planning, I suppose setups that are, or documentation that is given to the city, that if on the other side of that the city finds no satisfaction, or we end up in a position where we're seeing possible demolitions taking place, just and hear me out, from a political point of view, certainly with the timing of this, the world, the globe, the USA is certainly watching our race relations very closely in South Africa. I mean, is that not a red flag of what it would look like, the optics of having even a discussion around possible demolitions of an Afrikaner-only settlement in South Africa?
I don't think that is the case, because when you get to court, you have you annexed documents that can bring reference to the dates of when you started with the challenge that you want to ventilate in court. There's nothing racial, there's nothing political. We are not going to elections about this matter. We are just enforcing bylaws. In many other areas, you will see that we are removing structures that are built illegally. We are making sure that if there are hijacked buildings, we remove people that are hijacking buildings. Therefore, every citizen of Tshwane must be treated the same. And that's what we're going to do with the Clen Fontaine community, that as much as it's an emotive subject, we are also having a responsibility to preside over the laws of our local government.
Okay.
And we are now called upon to make sure that we enforce these bylaws, and we will not hesitate, but we will not, in the process, oppress any person that is willing to work with us, and make sure that we work within the parameters of the law.
Yeah, just briefly, you say Clen Fontaine, one of 17 settlements that have been that have really stood out to the city as possibly illegal. So just maybe a few others that are in that list.
If you go to Harangua next to Medunsa and George Mukhari Hospital, there's a place called Moshate. Very expensive houses that were built. It's one of the townships. If you go to Mamelodi, there's a Leo Fontaine. People bought land because many communities are buying land from unsuspecting individuals, and they build houses. The next thing, they want services from the city. We've identified 17 of them that we are going to engage and engage their leadership, look at the landowners, and make sure that we regularize the process. But if there are costs, communities that are living in those spaces must understand that we will have a joint development of those communities. And that conversation will come out in the public after we've done all our rounds and engagement with those communities in what needs to be happening around ensuring that they are compliant in terms of our land use management scheme.
Okay, so what's the next step then in your engagements with Clen Fontaine?
Clen Fontaine, we are going to court with them, but their leadership indicated in many of our media engagement that they've got their files, they're ready to bring them to the city. We're waiting for them to bring their files so that the planning division can take them through on what needs to be done in terms of rezoning, and also if they want to finalize the township establishment.
Okay. Maluleka, the Tshwane MMC for Housing and Human Settlement.